Hello, this is Mr. Amberman here with another instructional video. And this time we're in Unit 1 and we're talking about the tools by which we examine the world around us. And today, the two tools we're going to be taking a look at here in our toolbox is sight and situation. These are tools that we're going to be using all throughout the year. Now sight is the physical characteristics of a place. It's simply that. It's those things that include the landforms around you, the climate that you're in, the vegetation around you. Do you have access to water? Do you not have access to water? What kind of soil do you have? And then that reflects the type of crops that you have. The minerals that you have in the ground. That then is like something that can make you wealthy. Or if you have no minerals, then it's something that could be a detriment to you. What kind of wildlife pass by? That really influences a lot of people around the world in terms of how they live. Can they sustain life there? And a lot of that depends on the wildlife and so many other things. But it really boils down on physical characteristics of a place. Humankind, can change this for the worse and sometimes for the better. And we'll talk about that throughout the year. Now, if you take a look at this picture, now remember, whenever we give you a question in any of these videos, you can always hit pause, think about what you see or what the question is, and then hit play, and then you'll hear me talk about it. So take a moment and take a look at this picture and think about what we just said about sight, the physical characteristics of a place. Now, what would you describe the sight factors of this particular scene to be? Now, as you take a look, you can hit pause if you need more time. But if you look with me in the background, you see mountains. That's physical characteristics. Then you see some wooded areas. Then you see some hills, and then I think you see in the middle of that picture a creek passing through there. You see some scrubby brush, and you see wildlife there. All those are physical characteristics of a place. That is sight. Now let's shift gears, move a little bit to the east, and we're moving to Times Square, New York. You know, uh, this place also has sight factors, physical characteristics. And if you look around, if you've been to Times Square, you realize that there's a lot of pavement, there's a lot of bright lights, there's a lot of tall buildings. Maybe compared to that previous scene, maybe there's air pollution. Um, a lot of human beings, underneath the ground. You have the subways and maybe a more sophisticated sewer system. Those are physical characteristics of Times Square, the Big Apple, Manhattan, that island there. Um, and so those are things that we're going to be evaluating and investigating throughout the year. So that's our first tool in the toolbox today. Okay. Second is situation. Now, situation is, where are you in relation to something else? Where's a place in relation to another place? And that helps us as the investigators find places that maybe aren't so familiar to us. So if I'm going to somebody's house and they say, well, I live near the Walmart or I live near the school, that gives us a relative location from which we can find them. And that helps us determine whether we can access an area really simply or can we not access an area real simply. So let's take a look at an investigation here. Now imagine you are living in New Jersey and you take a look at this map and you start scratching your head and you begin to worry. Now, also imagine that you're somebody living in Indiana. You don't care a whole lot. So look at this question. Using situation as a guide, why did the people in Indiana pay little attention to this hurricane compared to people in New Jersey? Think about that for a moment. You can hit pause if you need more time. But the reason that people in New Jersey care a lot more about this particular hurricane is because they are nearer to it. They are relatively close to it. Their situation is closer to it. And that's something we need to think about and investigate. Think about this situation. You live, or a majority of you live in the greater Shrewsbury, New Freedom, Glenville, Glen Rock area. And you think to yourself, and as our buzzer is going off, to just make sure that we're on track here, using situation as a guide, how was Shrewsbury impacted by its proximity to Baltimore versus the impact that York's proximity to Baltimore has on it? Think about that for a moment. If you need more time, you can hit pause. But Shrewsbury's situation to Baltimore influences it more than York's situation to Baltimore because think about this: more people are influenced by Baltimore and Shrewsbury. More people who live in Shrewsbury have Baltimore roots. Think about if you think about the Walmarts in York versus the Walmarts in Shrewsbury, the Walmarts in Shrewsbury have Baltimore Ravens gear. The Walmarts in Shrewsbury have Baltimore Orioles gear. The York Walmarts, they have Philadelphia Eagles and Philadelphia Phillies and Pittsburgh Pirates and Pittsburgh Steelers and they may have some Orioles and some Ravens stuff, but it's a mixture. Why? Because York is influenced by more places than just Baltimore, where Shrewsbury has a great it's impacted greatly by the Baltimore area. Its situation is closer to Baltimore, and that's why a lot of the people in our particular school district live in Shrewsbury is because of its relative location to the greater Baltimore area, whether it's Hunt Valley, Cockeysville, Timonium, Towson, White Marsh, you name it. That area has a lot of jobs in it, and a lot of families in our school district live there or work there, and therefore they live in our area. So as we scratch our heads and we think about our tools, these are two things that we're going to be using throughout the year in order to investigate geography. So in recapping, your site is your physical characteristics of a place. And we saw some examples of that, whether it's out in the West or Times Square, and then situation, where one place or phenomena is in relation to another place. So, that hurricane's coming up the East Coast, and the people in New Jersey, since their relative location to the hurricane is closer, they're much more worried than people maybe out in Indiana. And similarly, the people who live in Shrewsbury or the greater Shrewsbury area, there's a greater percentage of those people have ties to Baltimore or maybe work in Baltimore or commute back and forth to maybe doctor's offices and other things in the Baltimore area versus York just because of relative location. And that's your situation. So site, situation, two of the tools that we'll be using throughout the year. If you have any questions, always reach out to me. Have a great day.